Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back from your coffee break. My name is Martin Dunne. I'm the Director of the National Ambulance Service for Ireland, and I'm absolutely delighted to be asked to chair this session here today. The session is entitled, as you probably know, Driving Change in Responding to Emergencies. It's a very simple statement, really, isn't it? But it's quite a very complex field, which requires a huge amount of knowledge, an understanding of where you're going, a plan, and definitely a host of knowledge to allow you to implement that plan. So while it is quite a straightforward statement, it can be a very complex thing to achieve and to maintain in a robust fashion. So during the course of the session today, we'll be introduced to various new concepts and I suppose future methods to improve our response to emergencies, which is very important. Be more proactive in our approach to emergencies, and also overarchingly improve our ability in relation to delivering public safety, and also along with that meeting our citizens' needs, which is, I suppose, the core function of what we're supposed to do. And how are we going to see that? This will be displayed to you through the three presentations by using the more use of modern technology, particularly around the digital, cloud, IP areas of what's available at the moment, and indeed what's coming in the future. Again, I suppose in fairness to the three people on the stage here with me, the lean is in relation to public safety and delivery of public safe services. So as such, I'm very delighted to introduce, and I'm going to introduce three very informed and I know highly engaging speakers on this very important subject. So Guillaume Lambert, here number two here, is the Prefect. He's from the Ministry of Interior, France. We have Bjorn Skoglund, business developer. He's a service owner 112 and crisis management of SOS Alarm in Sweden. And here beside me is Steve McLinden. Steve McLinden, the Transformation 2020 Digital Project Manager for both the Mid and West Wales Fire and Rescue Services. Also, I suppose I've been quite clearly told to say that we're running to quite a tight schedule and we don't want to come between you and your lunch. So we'll be giving each speaker approximately 15 minutes, give or take, to do the presentation. And hopefully we may have a couple of minutes for questions at the end of each presentation, which we'll try and facilitate. So I suppose without any further ado, I'd like to introduce and ask Guillaume to deliver his presentation. I think Guillaume is going to probably the presentation is going to lean on citizens' needs, like we talked already, looking at the cloud IP technology, and saying like they're game-changing, and they're trending in responding, and in our trending and able to respond better to emergencies. So I said we give Guillaume a warm welcome, and thank you very much.
Thank you. So I will speak about, the game-changing trends in responding to emergency from the French point of view. And in our opinion, there are three main game-changing trends. That is citizens' needs, cloud, IP technology. The first very basic statement I want to share with you is that the technology used by the PSAPs and those used by the population have become disconnected. As you can see on the slide, the way for the people to alert the emergency services start through what we may call landline voice call. And then when in the 90s, we have to contend with the wireless voice call devices. And entering the first decade of the 21st century, we have new technology available for the people. That's voice over IP, that's images, that's video, that's text, telematic, and IoT. And while the population benefits from this huge and fast evolution of technology, the PSAP remain on phone-based means of communication. And that situation brings about huge challenges for emergency services. As I wrote, a triple change has to be negotiated by the PSAP in a way to respond to emergencies. The first consequence of that disconnection in the technological means used by the PSAP and used by the population is that we have to contend with connected and digital citizens. Since each of us has smartphones in our pockets, we have the most advanced technology of the whole public safety chain. So the PSAP has to adapt to that fact. The second challenge is that we have to evolve toward a data-driven approach. We cannot continue offering only phone-based communication to the people. And so that's the second challenge. And the third challenge is interoperability among public safety services. That means the capacity, the ability to share critical information and data between different services. France is, of course, facing these three challenges. As it was said this morning in the opening session, 112 in France is a fragmented and aging organization. We still have not 11, but 13 emergency numbers, and 112 is just one of them. And this 112 system is still designed for landline voice calls only. That means only voice call handling capabilities for the PSAP in France. And at the same time, we can observe that more and more emergency calls are made from mobile phones. This organization, and the technology used by the French PSAPs make them unable to easily accommodate new communications modes. And the very fact that we have 30 emergency numbers brings about that we have a network of hundreds of PSAP to handle. And so to meet these challenges, the French government made the decision to launch the Nexus initiative. And this initiative was launched in order to avoid significant re-engineering and modification in hundreds of 112 systems and public safety answering points across France. So the goal of this initiative is to build up at the state level a multimedia digital platform that could be reached by the population in a multimedia way. And this platform will be connected to the different PSAP and will allow them to dispatch the alert and the need of the population to the different public services in charge of responding to emergency. That is the fire brigade, the ambulance service, the police, and the gendarmerie mainly. So to be successful, this transformation must be based, in my opinion, on three key elements. So we find again the three challenges I've been talking before. So to me, the first challenge is that we have to contend with connected and digital citizens. We do have to take into account the citizens' needs, as when building the architecture of our new system. The second key element is to support data-driven approach. And to support this approach, we do have to use, it requires IP communication. And the third one is to get interoperability a reality. The cloud technology will help to reach this goal. So the first game-changing trend, in my opinion, is to adopt a user-centric approach at the very beginning of the building of our new system. That means asking what are the people's expectations, gathering all these expectations. When one of our citizens is in need, what will he or she expect from the public services in charge of responding to 112? It will expect to be located immediately by the services, so to get a precise location. It will expect that his or her phone number will be immediately recognized. It will expect also the integration of social media, as we know that most people use social media to spread an alert. That's what we observed during the Paris attack in 2015, and that's a reality. It will expect to make a better use of his existing data. If you know my blood group or that kind of thing, it might be useful when handling an emergency situation. It will expect that the PSAP have the capacity to enable full communication with the requester. It will expect to give access to disabled people and to have the same quality of answers by the PSAP. And it will expect to use volunteers nearby waiting for the rescue means to arrive on the scene. And it will expect also to have notice of ETA rescue. So that's why we try to achieve through the Nexus initiative. So we launch what we call workshop with people from the society, with citizens, and to gather all this expectation, and then to develop our new solution based on these final goals. So that's the first major trend, in my opinion. That's the way we change the way of building, of imagining a new system. The second game-changing trend will be IP communication. IP communication enabled to switch from emergency phone call to emergency multimedia communication. As you may know, the European Union achieved last year the European Electronic Communication Code, and the Article 109 achieved this major change. It is said that the PSAP and all the member states have to provide the population with emergency communication and not emergency calls anymore. And that requires IP communication. IP communication relies, as you may know, on the use of both protocols, SIP and RTP. And to achieve this goal, the Nexus initiative will use what we call a unified communication platform with open source components. And this enables total conversation. Total conversation, that means allowing people a combination of audio, real-time text, images and video at the same time. And one of the benefits of this approach is to enhance the common situation awareness between the requester and the operators and the first responder on the scene. It will also benefit for disabled people to give them a full conversation with the PSAP, and the ability also to use sensors that are going to spread within our cities, with smart cities, with wearables on first responders, and all the sensors that provide information in the realm of e-health, electronic health. To achieve this goal, Nexus will set a NG112 compliant ESINet, the Emergency Services IP network. The main difference with that approach is that communication are no longer routed directly straight to a PSAP, but to a network, the ESINet. And the network is in charge of the smart routing to connect citizens to the PSAP appropriate to their situation. And that's a big change. And the other major benefit of the ESINet approach is to allow calls to 112 both from the internet and from the telephone networks. And the third game-changing trend 3, is cloud technology. Yeah, I have, okay. Cloud technology is, in our opinion, the right asset to reach full interoperability among public safety services and the population. Through the cloud, citizens, first responders, and PSAP benefit from a common set of web services, allowing mobile access to various applications. And we are lucky in France because the French Ministry of Interior booked a few years ago a private cloud. And so the private cloud hosting of these services provides a common and secure application environment for all operators, because when evolving toward IP communication, the risk, of course, is cyber threat. So you do need to take that into account. And the private cloud hosting is one of the solutions to that challenges. And the third advantage of the cloud technology is what we call the dynamic provisioning. That means that cloud resources are deployed flexibly to instantly match the activity level of the PSAP. At some period of the day, you have thousands of calls, but at other period, or when a crisis occurs, you may face millions of calls. So you have to have this capacity to instantly match the level of activity of the PSAP, and that is what the cloud approach enables. So through these three major game-changing trends, our goals is to create a digital hub delivering user-centric services for emergency management. That means delivering services to the population through appropriate application that could be downloaded on the different stores, to provide unwanted call taker with total conversation capability, to provide first responders with mobility tools, and to provide public safety services with interoperability, and also to provide authorities with real-time vision. Through this platform, we are going to evolve toward real-time assessment of the situation by every, step of the chain. And so that's what I try to draw on the slide. So we aim at connecting actors through technology to better manage emergency situation. And as you can read on the slide, through that initiative, we are creating a connecting chain of actors that are involved in the process, at every step. And they share the same services through this digital hub. So that's it. It's okay, I keep the time I was, hello, yeah, thank you.
Thanks very much, Guillaume. I mean, as we started the session, driving change in responding to emergencies, I have to say the content of that presentation just shows the huge amount of work that you're committed to drive change, to make sure you deliver the right service to the right patient at the right time, I think is what I might want to say to you, and well done, and it looks quite an enthusiastic and well laid out strategic direction. Is there any questions for Guillaume? We have one here, it's actually quite hard.
Hi, Simon Barris with 999112 Liaison Committee. In England, in the early years of this century, we tried to rationalise call taking for fire. £500 million contract to centralise a lot of very little centres into 9 regional ones. Completely failed, yes? And the big reason it failed was we didn't take the people who were employed with us, yes? And it was a great waste. How are you going to take your people with you on what looks like a really good technical initiative, but have we thought enough about the people that are actually doing the work?
I fully agree with that view, and I know this failure in England at the beginning of the century. So we pay a lot of attention in associating all the people in the fire brigade, ambulance services, in working in the public safety realm to the project, you know, to the very beginning of the project. They were associated, and they give their opinion, and they became aware of the changes that Nexus will bring about. So it's not only an IP project. It is a real, how shall I put it? We have to manage the drive it's a cultural change for all the public safety actors. So we have to take that into account. We have to provide support to make that change a success. And yeah, so I agree with that, with your view. It's very important. So we pay a lot of attention to that part of the project.
Okay, thanks very much. We might have time for just one more question if there is one. It's not mandatory, so if you don't feel like it, you don't have to. Oh, just got in the nick of time. I haven't mentioned the time frame. So the initiative was launched in 2017, and the goal is to deploy the system by the end of 2020. And the level of services provided to the PSAP will be, enhanced every month after this first major step. So it is a continuing process, you know. Nexus, in a way, will never be finished. You know, it's a continuous, evolving platform. Okay, no problem. Go ahead. One more.
Thank you. With the ability of giving people the chance to send the multimedia, like videos and pictures and everything, the risk of receiving malware raises. So what is your solution, or what kind of efforts are you putting in to ensure that no harmful kind of contents come into your CAD? Thank you.
Yeah, good question, but it's not, in a way, the PSAP operator already have to contend with that kind of bad content coming from the people, but only through the phone mode. With the IP communication solution we will build up, of course, you may have a lot more information coming to the operators, images, videos at the same time. So that's an asset because they enable them to have better assessment of the situation of the requester, but at the same time, you may have, how shall I put it, misuse of the system and of the new means enabled. So I don't know how to answer to your question. That's an issue that we will have to tackle when Nexus will be operational. And but yeah, you're right that that's maybe we have to think about some filters, because the change is that we get information, we get data before picking up the phones. So we will be able to visualize the data entering in the PSAP before picking up the phone. So if we make a statement that it is not a real emergency communication entering, we just don't take it,
Okay, thank you very much. I think it's a very, very interesting project. with, as I said at the start, public safety to the fore of it. It'd probably be very interesting maybe in a couple of years' time just to see how it worked out and how you're getting on. Someday might be good to catch up with you and get a report. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm sorry, there is a couple more questions, but we have to move on, unfortunately. Next up, we have Bjorn. Yep. Bjorn is going to do a presentation from the static to the dynamic, and how we developed a new model to answer emergency calls. Very interesting. Yep. Thank you, Bjorn.
Can you hear me? Yeah, great. Okay, hi everybody. Bjorn Skoglund from SOS Alarm in Sweden. I'm going to give you 15 minutes of my life explaining how we transformed our way of answering 112 calls from a static model to a dynamic, which has been very successful. So I want to share it with you. But first, some words about the Swedish 112 system and SOS Alarm. As you can see, our goal is over the year to have an average answering time of 8 seconds on the 112, the single 112 emergency number in Sweden. We have, for many years, have had increasing answering times, so we realized we had to do something. Last year, we actually had implemented for half the year the dynamic model, and that's why we landed on 11.6. A few years ago, we were actually up around 15 seconds average answering time. We have around 700 call takers working in 14 PSAPs in Sweden. We answer around 3 million 112 calls each year. We had a record actually last year because the summer of 2018 was very hot in Sweden, so we have had several large forest fires with many callers. When you dial 112 in Sweden, it's the single emergency number. I'm not envious of France with 13. It's enough with one emergency number for us. And it's always, the call taker is always a person at SOS Alarm, working at SOS Alarm. And he can get support from nurses and dispatchers and so on. And the basic idea is to have one call taker during the whole interview, but when it comes to calls to the police, for example, we transfer them to the police and they do the interview. Why we can do this dynamic model, it's important to state you have to have an interconnected PSAP system. You have to work in a network, otherwise this won't work. We had the old model, the really old model, where every PSAP, and actually there were 20 PSAPs 10 years ago, every PSAP worked for themselves. And we had in 2000 a large snowstorm in Gevalia, the town of Gevalia. It was very local, so the PSAP there had lots of calls to handle and was overburdened. Rest of the PSAPs were actually having ordinary workday. And therefore we interconnected all the PSAPs in 2010, but we still didn't have found the real model how to work. It was quite unstructured. So we realized this, and in 2015 we actually implemented a model that was static. We thought it was the best practice model at that time. But really, and we had decreasing answering times for a while, for a few months, but then they started going up again, and we realized that this was not the right model. It was a dissatisfaction from call takers and so on. So we had to do something, and we did a review. How should we solve this? And in 2017, we called together around 60 co-workers, call takers, system analysts, and so on, to do work around this. So we did some analysis, and we came through with a couple of test models. We wanted to test 11 different phases, really. I will show them in the next picture. And we started this testing on the 2nd of January in 2018. And actually, the thing was that we did this in real operation. So we didn't do a test in a safe environment. We didn't in real operation, which required that we had a close overview, monitoring every step of this all the time. Of course, when you start this, it's important with the communication, both internally and externally. I mean, we have to communicate with other actors like fire brigades, ambulance, and so on. And we have now a dynamic model. I will show you that in a few slides. And of course, it's not, we have an ongoing evaluation. You have to evaluate it all the time. But we think we are quite right. As I mentioned, our goal, average answering time over the year, should be 8 seconds. We are now down to 8.3 seconds. And as I mentioned, we have been around 15 seconds just a few years ago. So we did a lot of test phases. I won't go through them. I think you can read them for yourselves. We will share the PowerPoint with you later. But I think the important thing is that we did test a lot of different models, even models that we didn't believe in, just to prove that they weren't the right model. And of course, when you do this, if you see directly that it doesn't work, you have to interrupt it. So I know that one phase was tested just for 1 hour, and then we abolished it. And the real challenge is, of course, that it's different conditions at different times of the day or different times in the year. It could be snowy weather, it could be snowstorms, it could be payday, which means that many callers call 112 for some reason. So we have tried different threshold values, and those has been altered constantly to find the perfect balance. And as I said, we did testing in real operation. I think this is important to have the courage to do this. We decided at last as a dynamic model, and the dynamic model doesn't involve just one of these tests we did. It involves several tests and models now. And the important thing is the flexibility that you get. You can. The challenge could be a large volume of 112 calls like we had last summer during the forest fires. We had around 13,000 112 calls a day, which is what we have on New Year's Eve normally. So it was a record. And we can handle large volumes. We can handle local call overload. We can use available call takers and even dispatchers for answering 112 calls. And this is the 3 models we have decided on: a local, a regional, a national model. And normally we use the local. That means that if you call from a city, you normally get to the nearest PSAP. And this is, well, it's frequently used. It works mostly. But sometimes you have a local overburden. There's an event, an accident in a town. And then we can go to the regional model and we still use local login for call takers in the 3 largest cities in Sweden. We found that this is the best model. But we also can use secondary login for dispatchers, as I said. And if we have a large volume all over, we can interconnect all the PSAPs, and the threshold is 0 seconds. So you can answer a call from the southern Sweden in the PSAP in the northern of Sweden and handle it there. The dispatching is done locally, though. I should stress that. And this usually used in weekends, nighttime. We have found that is the best model. But it's important to say that you can, during a shift, go from one model to another and to the third one and back again if you want to. It's not a static during a shift. It depends on the call volume in every given moment. And of course, you have to have a conductor of the orchestra. Someone has to take the decision to go from one model to another. And then we have a national coordinator, a person in charge of this 24/7. And they monitor the 112 calls, all of the production, so that they can, in any given moment, take the decision to go to another model. And to their help, we have a team leader at every one of the 14 PSAPs. And the team leader is in charge of the production in the PSAP. But it's the national coordinator who decides which model to use. And instantly, the team leader can see that the call takers in their respectively PSAPs log in the system to the right model. We have several different logins to change to the right model. And this means actually, if you see the brighter of the lines, it's from 2016 and 17, where we landed on, 13, 12, something like that, average answering time over the year. Last year, well, you see, the black one is from 2018. We had a bump in the middle of summer, but actually, as I said, we had around 200,000 more 112 calls, mostly during the summer. And then you can see in the autumn, when we decided to use the dynamic model, we have since then have had good answering times. And this year, January to March, we are right now on 8.3 seconds in average time. And actually, the New Year's night, all of you working in PSAPs know that this is the worst night of all year. We handled this quite good. You see the yellow line is, and we actually had the dynamic model even in 2017-18, that you received. So this is really a game changer when it comes to handling bumps of 112 calls. So my last slide, our key findings and lessons, if you choose to do it. Of course, you have to have interconnected PSAPs, of course, but I think the most important thing is to dare to do this, have the courage to do this. It's not easy to do it, but when you do it, you involve call takers, which is also very important, and other competent staff, you should find out that this is a very positive thing to do. When everyone can be there and try it out for real and give feedback, which is also very important. We did it mostly by regular surveys to the call takers, where they could give their feedback. Does this work? Does this not work? And so on, and why. Communication, as I said, information is very important, both internal and external, and of course the transparency is really important too. You should be transparent to your fire brigades, the emergency medical service, the police and so on. They should be part of this also. And then of course always constant evaluation, adjustment when needed. You have to monitor every step during the test phase. But trust me, it's worth it, and it has worked for us. So I hope if you consider the same. And we are, of course, willing to share with us our experiences if you want to know more. And you got my email address there. Thank you. I'll pass it on.
Well done, Bjorn. Thank you very much for that. Again, it's a great example of people doing the right thing in relation to trying to deliver appropriate services to the citizens under a public safety heading to make sure that we get the right resource to the right place at the right time. Well done. Is there any questions, Bjorn? Okay, just one here in front.
Hello. Thank you very much for the presentation. It was very interesting. I'd like to come back to one thing that you presented, is like this merge where like basically somebody from like the north of the country can take the call of somebody from the south. This usually when like you present the reform to the population, this raises like a lot of concerns, and population are like scared about that. Is that something that is really like an issue now? I mean, do you see that's like?
That's a good question, because it was an issue from the start. When you speak to the fire brigades and ambulance services and so on, they think that it has to be a local PSAP answering because you know the area and so on. But if you have the right systems, you have the GEES system, the right map and address database, And of course, as I said, the dispatching is done locally, which is very important, I think. I don't think it would work actually if you would do that centrally. Not today anyway. So it's not an issue now.
Okay, thanks for that. Any other questions before we move on? Just one more again in the front there.
Just to continue what you asked, so you mentioned the GIS. Do you have any software that automatically determines the location of the caller when they...
We don't have AML today. As Benoit knows, we have been working with this for 3 years, and I see Fiona here, which I will speak to Google later on, and hopefully we will have AML during this year.
Okay, just one more, John.
Hi, Bjorn.
Hi,
Paris from EENA. Bjorn, I have a question on the legacy of your 112 system. So you said that you have a single emergency number now in Sweden. What is the legacy? Did you have several emergency numbers before? And if it is the case, how did you make sure that people would not complain to lose their, let's say, own emergency numbers from a firefighter point of view, police point of view, and medical people point of view? How did you manage to make it unique?
You mean the 112? I'm not sure that I follow the question, but I mean, we have a constantly dialogue with all our organizations, with our help givers like police, fire brigade, and so on. So I don't think it has been an issue. I'm not sure that I understand your question. Aha, you asked if we have several emergency numbers. Okay. No, we have always had one, actually since 1956. We started with 90,000, that was the Swedish, 1956, and then we introduced 112 in 1997. So, okay, thanks.
Okay, if you've no more questions, we'll just move swiftly on, and thank you for that, Bjorn, very interesting. Last but not least, we have Steve McLinden. Steve is going to give us a talk on to create time and space which enables a transformational organisational culture centred on trust and innovation by exploiting digital technology and for business processes. Well done, Steve.
Okay. Good afternoon. I'm Steve McLinden. I'm currently a serving fire officer within Mid and West Wales Fire and Rescue Service. I'm a tactical and strategic commander as well. So following 2 really good presentations, and I'm standing between you and lunch, so there's not much pressure at all, so I'll try and get through this as quickly as I can. So the title, the introduction, doesn't really describe what I'm going to talk about. What I'm trying to do is just share with you what we're currently looking at within Mid and West Wales. I think it's important just to give you an idea of our service area. And the service area is we cover 2/3 of the land mass of Wales. And just for clarity, Wales is not part of England. It is our own country, because that is a popular misconception. But we do have significant challenges, and that is we have a mainly on-call part-time workforce, which we have limited positive hours with. And the geography of the service area is such that it takes from the bottom corner in Swansea Bay up to the top serving area is about 4 hours. So we need to look at how we can use technology to answer some of the problems which our end users have identified. One of the other things, just to pick up from the previous talkers, is there's a lot of synergy in what they've been talking and hopefully what I'm going to cover here. So if I press the button. So what I'm going to focus on today is I'm going to tell you about some of the initiatives that we're looking at, and that is around the management or the intelligent management of operational assets and what we're trying to do with that using some technology that is well established. I'm going to tell you a little bit about how we utilise drones in our service and how that has led on to the concept of digitising the fireground. What we're focusing on in digitising the fireground is actually for the end users on scene. A lot of digitisation is focused from the scene to the control, to the silver and gold. So I'm just going to run through and tell you what some of our aspirations and ambitions are there. So As I said, we've got a fancy title, but I'm heading up the T20 program, which is an amalgamation of 7 key focus areas. I won't go into the detail about the actual key areas, but the most important one, and this is where the first synergy comes, is everything we're doing is end-user focused. We are looking to solve the problems that our end users have told us they've got, and we're looking to involve them in the solution and how they are going to adopt it. The success of our program is going to be judged on not how much technology and how clever we can be and how many processes we can change, but it will be judged on, are our end users using it? Do they understand why they're using it? And are they helping us to bring it forward and develop it? It's very much with Bjorn's last statement about the evaluation, is this isn't one version, we get to the end and we stop. We're looking at version 1.2, 1.3. So the areas that I'm going to focus on is about the Station 2020, the ICT infrastructure, and the digital fireground. So, what I'm talking about is the management of operational assets. Within the UK, and especially within Mid and West Wales Fire and Rescue Service, every fire station you go to, you open up the locker, and the locker will have the same equipment. As you can see from our map, we're quite a diverse area, so therefore we are having challenges, like a lot of emergency services, is the amount of equipment we carry on the truck is getting more and more because we do a much more diverse range of activities. But also the weight of the vehicle and the space there is getting challenging to put the new kit on. So what we're doing is a program where with asset marked with radio frequency ID tags, all of our assets, and we're looking to develop the technology to be able to monitor when a piece of kit is used, when it's taken out of the truck, so that when we do go and engage with end users and say, look, you've got a winch on the front of your pump and you've got a winch in the back locker, but you've used the one in the back locker once in the last 5 years, we can provide the data and the evidence to justify why we want to move that off the truck and put something else in. The other big project which we're looking at is around managing our personal protective equipment. Currently, at the moment, we issue everybody 2 sets of kit at about £1,000 a time. And they keep that kit, so their spare set is only available to them at all material times. What we want to do is change that model to one which is a size issue and operate a bit of click and collect service. So when their tunic is dirty, they can put it into the wash and the system will automatically tell them where the next available tunic is. What we want to do, though, is put a bit of intelligence and machine learning behind that, and we want to make sure that at all material times, their spare tunic in their size is actually available in their fire station. So it's in the storage unit, which is constantly tracked. So what we want to do with that as well is build the artificial intelligence and the machine learning tool, which we've started to do. But what we also want to do is bring in some artificial intelligence where it starts to monitor what's going on, activity rates, call rates, the weather, social media. So if it can see that potentially there's going to be a spate of wildfires in one area, it'll automatically look at the resource management tool to see who's going to be on duty at that time, get their sizes, and then pre-stock extra kit so people are always having the correct PPE. It also then lends itself really nicely for if the issue of contamination of fire kit comes in, so every time it's exposed to fire, you need to wash the kit. We've estimated that we would have to increase our current holding on the original or the current system by 200%. By adopting this, what we've called PPME approach, we're looking to reduce that additional burden, but currently to replace like for like and deliver the same service with the size issue model, we're looking to cut our investment cost by 1/3. So instead of paying £1.9 million to replace the kit, we'll only be paying £1.2 million, and we can have a failure rate of less than 1%. So that's the failure is they have to go to another station to actually get their kit. So just to quickly sort of show that in real terms and this is where we've looked to engage with our end users. We've got a graphic which basically just shows how it works. And kit's dirty, you scan it in, you decide what you're going to do with it. The system automatically tells you where your next piece of kit is. You go and get it out, you scan it, and then within 48 hours, the stores team come and replenish that stock. But the aim of it is primarily to enhance the end user experience. I'm just conscious of time, so I'm just not going to go, as I said, this slide is going to be shared, and you can have a look at it after the conference. The next element is drones, and just really want to talk about our drone team. 2.5 years ago as a service, we knew nothing about drones, and we've been very fortunate with the supports of colleagues from around Europe that we've been able to develop our drone team. Our drones sit within our urban search and rescue unit, so when you mobilise a drone, you also get a search dog too, which is really helpful. And the van is kitted out to enable tactical managers to get real-time situational awareness. The drone has gone from not being an asset we had 2.5 years ago to now being the busiest asset we've got, apart from the fire engines turning out of the door. And what that's led to us is, once with most drone teams, once you get over the novelty of flying the drone, you start to realise the value of the image data and the enhanced situational awareness that it's going to give. So what we've looked at and realised is we didn't have a really robust method of being able to share that data with the incident commanders at the right time. So that has led us to looking at our operating model on the fireground. And at the moment, most first responders will know the operating model we have is the data we get is always pushed on us. We don't have any control on it. It's radios going, you're seeing stuff, people are coming up to you, control contacting you. So what we wanted to do was create a mechanism where we can basically change that operating method from push to pull. So all the important data from the sector commanders or the information sources are being fed into what we call an information bucket. So all the information's there, and then I can pull down the information when I need it. But also you then have the visualization of things like body cameras, drone cameras, GPS tracking, the mapping, resource logs, decision logs can be completed in real time as part of the natural process by the incident commander, and I can then go and access it when I need to. So when I'm going to make a decision, I think I want to know what's going on at the back of that building, I can just log into their camera and have a look, and then I can have a conversation. But it's just putting me in control to try and bring our spans of control down, so we are making the best decisions we can with the best situational awareness. So what our ambition is, as I said, is trying to redesign the fireground and the technology that's on it. And as you can see there, traditionally, we've normally focused on the bit from the command unit going back, but actually what we want to do is create a 4G wireless bubble which allows all the devices within that fireground to actually talk to each other and put this information into the information bucket. So things that we're looking at are things like GPS tracking, RFID tracking of personnel, body cameras. We are tentatively looking at biometric monitoring of staff and operational firefighters, but we think that's a little bit of a Pandora's box at the moment, so we don't want to quite open that until we've got a clear picture of what we are going to do with that. The other thing that we've been looking to achieve is what is known as the Holy Grail. Is for us, when we commit firefighters into a building, we can brief them and say, go into that building, do on a left-hand wall search. But in real terms, as soon as they go through the threshold of the doorway, we are only guessing as to where they are. And you've only got to look at the devastating incidents like Shirley Towers in Hampshire, where 2 firefighters died, but they were only 10 metres from a point of safety, but nobody knew they were stuck and hadn't moved. So what my ambition is to enable our incident commanders to see through walls, so we can see where our staff are. So with that, we've been really lucky. We've been awarded £1.25 million to develop this technology. So we started the process back in June, July. We had 49 companies from around Europe who applied. We've now shortlisted to 5, and we're providing them with £50,000 each to do a research piece, to take their initial idea and do the research to come up with a business plan, to then be potentially shortlisted into phase 2. What we're hoping to do within phase 2 is by December 2020, we'll actually have a commercially available product. However, this is a design challenge, so it could be we get to the end of phase 1 and it's not feasible. or it could be the technology to make it work is £1 million per set. We're not going to be able to achieve that. So just last thing for me really is just about the lessons learned, because what we're doing is we're doing a transformation piece. We're doing a lot of proof of concepts. We are very lucky that we've got strategic buy-in, but you've got to maintain that, because the strategic leaders nod a lot, and then when it starts getting difficult, when you're starting to change things or saying it's going to cost this or we want to do that, you need to keep them on board. One of the strengths we have got is that we've got sign up an agreement that controlled failure is a healthy option. Whereas before, especially fire service projects, and the gentleman who mentioned the fire control, that was one that was going to be done at all costs until it got to the point where we couldn't do it. So we've got to the point where we can do stuff and say, actually, it's not going to work, it's not viable, the landscape's changed, political mood's changed. But the key thing for us is, and it's the most important, and I won't apologise for this, the end user must be at the centre of it. We've got an ethos where we say, we're not doing anything to anybody, we're helping you do it to yourself. And if you can see the bottom right-hand corner there, we also apply methodology where we say technology is not always right. And when we look at a solution, things we look at is, obviously the end user needs to be part of the design, but they need to contribute to it, but don't give them a blank piece of paper, because you'll have 15,000 different views. Yeah? You say, what do you think of this? How can we make it work? Everything we do technology-wise has to be Fisher-Price. Other children's toys are available, just for promotion reasons, but it's got to be simple, intuitive, bright, easy to use, and it's got to have what we call a get out of jail free button, a back button. When we talk to end users and we said, why don't you use the tech? I'm scared if I press that button and do it wrong, a satellite will fall out of the sky, or I'll mobilise every fire engine, which we've got. We also want to make sure that and very much with Guillaume's presentation is, we don't want proprietary software. We want stuff that is open so we can scale it up, scale it down, change it, add things to it, because what we know now to what we know in 2 years' time is going to be different. And finally, the thing we are striving towards is Ohio. Only handle it once. If you've got information on me, I shouldn't have to put my name and address in. When I'm logged in, it's single sign in, it knows who I am. So, and one of the other things, the final point for me with this, I know I'm slightly over, I do apologise. Oh no, I'm on time. Okay, I can pause for a second. What we've found is, we've gone out to industry and we've said, we want to partner with you. We're not a customer supplier, we want to partner with you. And we've been overwhelmed about the level of support which we've got. And they tend to give you a lot of free stuff to try. So if you want to try stuff, don't do a procurement exercise, go out and speak to them, say, this is what we're aiming to achieve. So, that's me.
Well done, Steve. Thanks very much. I was just going to ask, is there any questions? And I see a hand shout up already in ahead of me. That's great. So we have one question. Go ahead.
Thank you, sir. You've talked about interagency seamless coordination. And as far as the fireman department is concerned, I think it might happen. But regarding coordination with the other agency, such as the National Health Service, how does it happen regarding exchange of data, personal data, health data, for example? Thank you. French Digital Agency for Civil Protection. I'm a managing director.
Okay, yeah, a really good question. And the issue of data protection and data sharing is always a challenging one. Within the UK emergency sector, we've had a program called JESIP, which is the Joint Emergency Service Interoperability Protocol, and we regularly rehearse and exercise a silver and gold level. Our ambition is that with on the bronze level, the on-scene platform, that other first responders will be able to have access to that. At the silver and gold level then, we would make this system available because it's a situational awareness tool for them. We still struggle, like everybody else does, is with the data protection, is how can I share that? Within Wales, we have got the WASPI Accord, which is the Wales Agreement for the Sharing of Personal Information. It's been in place probably for about 10 years now. The difficulty is we haven't got a robust platform in being able to share that. And the strategic leaders are bought into it. The end users can see the benefit. I think the difficulty is it's the middle managers who are accountable, and they're very nervous. So if you've got the answer to it, can you share it with me? Because it is a really difficult one to actually break.
Thank you very much, Steve. Well answered. Any other questions before we start to wrap up? One more here, yeah?
Hi. I'm asking from the point of view of artificial intelligence. Are you considering any other use cases of artificial intelligence and machine learning, or this is the only one you're considering at the time being?
In relation to our program, we're limiting it to that because we are trying to get the end users bought into what we're trying to do, and it's about the approach. As soon as you mention AI or ML to end users, they go, "Oh, you're trying to replace me. You know, you won't need me doing that." And what we say is that what we're looking at is to use those tools to declutter, so they have a range of choices which can help their decision making. We have got ambitions in relation to the GovTech challenge, the internal tracking, because when you look back at Grenfell Tower, a good casing point was that a lot of the incident commanders or the responders were being faced with family members or friends saying, "I think my brother is up on the 21st floor." And the incident commander is then struggling to make a decision, do I deploy 4 or 5 crews up there, but I don't know they're there? We see the use of AI with facial recognition software. If people had body cameras on and it was tracking people, you could have a situation where somebody says, "My brother John Smith is upstairs." We put in their name, it checks the database and says, "Is that John Smith there?" Because they were seen coming out of that door there, which is real good information. So I think the potential for AI is there. We're going to take small steps because we want to take the end user with us, and we want to try and get to an environment where the end user is saying, "Why couldn't the system do this?" We'll obviously be one step ahead of them going, "Oh, that's a good idea. Here it is." But I think it's about recognizing that AI is just another tool, and it's a support mechanism, and it shouldn't replace any of the core functions and skill sets which our crews have.
Okay, thanks very much. We're coming just to the end of the session now. I think it's only fair for me to recognise 3 excellent presentations by 3 very engaged people, with definitely a focus on making sure that the clients get the right service, but also with the twist that data is very, very important to be able to make any positive change and to be able to prove the change, and also staff welfare that Steve talked about earlier on is just as important. And encompassing all that is to make sure that everyone, I suppose, engages with all the various stakeholders as they're going through a change management process to make sure that the outcome is positive for everyone. So I'd just like maybe to give each of the speakers, just give them a quick round of applause, please, because they're a daunting enough audience. Again, I'll just a couple of householding things just before we leave. We're just wrapping up now. So if everyone could get back to the area around 2 o'clock, i.e. 1400 hours. In this room we have, the next session will be around 1400 hours, and about running a non-emergency number in parallel with an emergency number, which will be quite interesting. And in track 2, in parallel room A next door, we'll have the potential of social media for emergency services, again, which can be quite an interesting topic. So listen, thank you very much. And the lunch is now available upstairs. It's time to meet and greet and network and chat. And again, thank you very much for your time, and thanks to the speakers. Thank you.
That was interesting about France.